The target's more than 220 feet down. Mike thinks it could be a plane, but he can't yet tell whether it's the Mariner. Visibility at this depth is limited, and a strong current makes the search really challenging.
There's a lot of fish in shipwrecks. They attract fish, so we know we're in the vicinity.
Then, out of the gloom, the divers spot something.
That's the nose wheel of the aircraft.
And just a stone's throw away, the rusted fuselage of a large aircraft.
As an aircraft wreck site, this is quite interesting. We have a lot of intact structure there. Typically, over time, these aircraft are just bits and pieces on the seabed. So to see something like this is quite spectacular.
Could this be the wreckage of the Mariner rescue plane? The next step is to recover the aircraft. They spot pylons along the wings, which look like they could have been mounts for pontoons. The aircraft seems to have been amphibious. Portholes on the side of the fuselage are what you expect to find on a Mariner. And the shape of the horizontal stabilizer to the divers from photographs of the airplane. It suggests this could be the amphibious Mariner. The team hasn't found a definitive piece of evidence.
It's definitely a plane. I want to be very careful what I say, but there are some very
military aircraft.
This is the very start of the dive. We've made our way to the bottom, and we're heading up current to find the wreck. And as you can see, we're starting to see some debris come into view here. We originally were diving this with the hopes of finding the PBM-5 Martin Mariner, but as we're cruising around the site looking at some of the features, we're seeing things that are inconsistent with that. And so we're kind of left with the question, what aircraft is this?
Well, judging by the brake system and the tire that was on there, it would be a post-World War II aircraft. Okay. I could tell that right off the bat.
That looks like it's obviously part of the cockpit, the top of it, the windows.
Roy is 100% certain this wreck's not the Mariner they've been looking for. But if the wreckage isn't the missing search and rescue plane, then what is it? The answer could help resolve another mystery.
Is significant down here, the porthole that you see there may be a porthole for a camera.
Exactly, and we actually see several of them inside that were very prominent that really caught our attention. You can see there's twin engine.
That pretty much ices it. There's only two possibilities, two pylons, one on each side would be either an RB-66.
It doesn't take Roy long to conclusively identify the type of plane.
It's beyond a doubt an A3 Skyward by comparing the fuselage and the pylons underneath the wings, the sweep back on the horizontal tail, the fact that the landing gear retract into the fuselage. These are all absolute indices of it being an A3 Skyward.
The A3 Sky Warrior was the largest carrier-launched aircraft in the U.S. Navy in its day. And Navy files show that in 1960, one crashed while attempting a carrier landing in this area. It's highly likely that this is the wrecked A3 that Mike and his team have tracked down. But Flight 19 and the Mariner rescue plane remain lost.
The search continues to find this aircraft. We know it's out there. It's just a matter of finding the exact place.
If we were to drain the vast abyssal plain around the Bahamas, somewhere out there, we'd almost certainly find the Lost Patrol. And based on the condition of other wrecked planes found on the seafloor, this is how we'd expect them to look after 7 decades in the sea.
Right of takeoff.
A modern commercial airliner carrying 239 people has vanished. There's no Mayday call and no wreckage at the point of last radar contact.
MH370 lost contact with Subang Air Traffic Control this morning.
Aviation authorities struggle to understand.
We believe family members should prepare themselves for the worst.
Families left behind demand answers. The Malaysian government launches an investigation. It will be the largest and most expensive in aviation history. With multiple dead ends, false leads, a deluge of speculation, but only a handful of real clues. One of the first comes from the Malaysian military. Powerful defense radar has detected the plane, turning back across Malaysia, heading northwest up the Strait of Malacca, then disappearing out of range here, just north of Sumatra. It's a shocking discovery. After it disappeared from civilian radar, it didn't crash, it continued flying.
Initially, when the airplane made a turn without talking to air traffic control, in my mind, all bets were off. It could be a terrorist event. It could be a deliberate act by a crew member. It could be a mass failure in the electrical system.
The next clue comes from space. Although lost to radar, MH370 continued to exchange what are called heartbeat signals with an Inmarsat satellite above the Indian Ocean. The heartbeats come once an hour. Frequency changes in the signals help experts calculate its direction of travel and reveal something extraordinary. After its initial track to the northwest, MH370 turned south and flew for 6 more hours. From the travel time of each signal, investigators also calculate the plane's distance from the satellite. These lines are called arcs. Using the fuel load and cruising speed, they can create a range of possible flight paths as the plane crosses each arc. The final, or 7th arc, is deep in the Indian Ocean. There are no more heartbeat signals beyond this point.
The data was extraordinary in as much as you're trying to establish an aircraft's position based on information that was never intended for that purpose.
It's the biggest breakthrough so far, instantly shifting the search 3,000 miles south of the last military radar contact, taking it into the jurisdiction of the Australian government and accident investigator Peter Foley.
This is something extraordinary that was captured by Inmarsat. At the time, the aircraft was in the air, which very few people knew about, and which is absolutely key to the search and working out where to look for that aircraft.
They start looking here. A swath of ocean running 700 miles along the 7th arc. They estimate that the plane could lie 140 miles to either side, the maximum glide range of a 777. The 7th arc is over 1,500 miles from the nearest land. It will take 2 days for Australian search vessels to get there. 2 powerful storms have swept through since MH370 disappeared, making the job of spotting debris even harder. 22 aircraft and 19 surface vessels look for wreckage and possibly even survivors.
When an aircraft enters the ocean with energy, you expect to see a potential oil slick. You expect to see all sorts of objects actually which are buoyant, which are released from the aircraft as debris.
Surface debris is normally the first step to finding a missing aircraft, but it's not a guarantee. Before MH370, the largest and most expensive search in aviation history takes place here, 8,000 miles away in the Atlantic Ocean. Hunting for the wreck of Air France Flight 447. What lessons lie amid this tangled wreckage for those searching for MH370? On June 1st, 2009, Air France 447 leaves Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, carrying 216 passengers and 12 crew to Paris. Weather reports indicate severe thunderstorms along the flight path. 3 hours and 45 minutes into the flight, as the plane nears the equator, its onboard computers send a burst of emergency warnings, then falls silent. Olivier Ferrand is in charge of the French search team. The warning signals are his first clue.
Some maintenance messages and an important position message, which was very useful for our search.
It's a deep and remote stretch of ocean, but the search team has every advantage. A known flight path, an accurate final position, and then surface debris found within 5 days. And yet, despite initial optimism, it takes 2 years, 4 expeditions, and $40 million to find the plane.
Yes, I remember that moment when we found the wreckage. I was very careful because we've had false alerts before, and then it turned out to be geology or not what we're looking for.
Why does it take so long? Using the data meticulously collected by the search team, combined with the latest visualization technology, it's possible to drain the Atlantic Ocean, revealing the hostile world that faces every deepwater search effort. Immense water pressure, freezing cold, total darkness, and hidden dangers everywhere. Finally, at 12,800 feet, the shattered remains of Air France 447. Engines, wheel assemblies, and other heavy items lie together. Their twisted remains a testament to the force of the impact. Smaller, lighter objects stretch along more than 1/3 of a mile of seafloor, equivalent to 8 New York City blocks. And a critical realization: the seabed wreckage is nowhere near the surface wreckage. It's almost 24 miles away. Investigators spend about 2 years searching in this very challenging area, not realizing that ocean currents have carried debris far from the crash site. The long and frustrating search for the French aircraft carries a warning. Even with debris and an accurate final position, when a plane goes into deep water, it's very hard to find. A sobering thought for the team searching for MH370.
Air France was very difficult with our area of 17,000 square kilometers, but it's nothing compared to the surface that the search teams have to search for MH370. It's much more difficult.
In the southern Indian Ocean, investigators look for surface debris for over 2 weeks. Even with the aid of satellites, they find nothing.
One of the greatest initial mysteries, and that has transcended the entire period of time that we've been looking for this airplane. Where's the debris?
With no debris, they need to find another way to narrow the search. So they focus on MH370's black box data recorders. Each has an underwater locator beacon, or ULB. In water, they emit an electronic ping with a range of just over a mile. Find the beacons, and you find the plane. But time is running out.
Battery life on the ULBs is only 30 days. Although they do last longer, they fade out.
By the time specialist pinger locator technology reaches the search zone, there are just 3 days of battery life left. Investigators have only a few days to locate MH370's black boxes before their locator batteries run out. Faced with a vast search zone, they decide to focus on commonly used air routes.
It was thought that if the aircraft had been in distress and was trying to complete a flight, for example, to Perth, there were some recognised air routes.
Australian Navy vessel Ocean Shield steams to the point where the air route to Perth intersects the 7th arc. The team looking for Air France 447 also used pinger locators in an attempt to discover the crash site. They begin listening for signals within days of the plane's disappearance.
In most cases, the pinger locator work, and that was our assumption before Air France 447.
Ships scour the search area for 40 days, but hear nothing. The hunters wonder, are the locator beacons lost or destroyed? Returning to the remarkable drained seascape of the Air France 447 wreckage reveals the scale of the problem. The seafloor here is 12,800 feet below the surface. Deep in the mid-Atlantic ridge. And here, amid the wreckage, nestling in the remains of the tailplane, the black boxes, one with its locator beacon still attached. A search ship passed directly over here, but detected nothing. The metal wreckage may have blocked the signals, or they could have been damaged by the sheer force of the impact.
I think they were unfortunately damaged at that stage.
Investigators listening for the MH370 black boxes can only hope they'll have better luck. They monitor the ocean for 15 days, using 3 ships equipped with sensitive listening technology, while military aircraft launch sonar buoys. They do detect some signals, but conclude it's just random interference. Faced with a new disappointment, the search team moves to a different approach, searching the seafloor itself, using towed sleds carrying sonar scanners. It will be the largest undersea hunt in history. But before it can even start, there's a new problem. This part of the Indian Ocean has never been surveyed in detail. The sleds will be close to the seafloor, and no one knows exactly what is down there. Using the information gathered by satellites, it's possible to drain away the Indian Ocean to show what the ocean floor actually looks like. As the water flows away, it exposes a world no human has ever seen before. Dramatic cliffs, more than twice the height of the Empire State Building. fault lines plunging almost 20,000 feet deeper than any canyon on land. A volcano-dotted valley running for 100 miles. Operating underwater scanning vehicles in this terrain will take a huge amount of skill and luck. Armed with their new map of the seafloor, the search team deploys the towed sleds. Traveling deep underwater, the sleds begin to scan the seafloor. And they will be guided by a game-changing new clue. It comes from further detailed analysis of the final Inmarsat signal from MH370. Engineers crunch the numbers and discover something shocking. In its final moments, the plane descends rapidly, almost certainly because after 7.5 hours in the air, it's run out of fuel. Boeing engineers then simulate what happens when a 777 exhausts its fuel, making it possible for the first time to recreate the likely final minutes of MH370's mysterious flight. The right engine flames out first. The autopilot compensates for the imbalance with a hard left turn. Minutes later, the second engine flames out. With no power, the autopilot switches off, leaving MH370 in a long spiral descent. In every Boeing simulation, the crash site lies within 29 miles of the 7th arc. These dramatic new insights immediately reduce the size of the search area from 463,000 square miles to just 23,000. But that's still 3.5 times the size of the search area for Air France 447.
This is a massive search area. It's magnitudes larger than any previous search I've ever worked on.
Deep sea salvage expert Andy Sherrill analyzes all the data that's been gathered underwater.
Oddly enough, when I first heard about MH370's disappearance, my wife was in labor with our first child. The news came on about the disappearance of the flight, and my wife looked at me and she said, "Now that's a job you're not going to get involved with."
Andy has been involved ever since. After 15 months of detailed scanning, covering 23,000 square miles of seafloor, there's still no sign of the missing plane.
We have a very high confidence that we would have detected the plane in that search area. So all of these factors gives us really high confidence that the airplane debris field is not in that area.
The investigation continues, still guided by just 2 key pieces of evidence: the Inmarsat calculations and Boeing's flight performance data. Then, suddenly, a third line of inquiry brings hope of a breakthrough. On a remote island on the other side of the Indian Ocean, 3,000 miles from the search area, a piece of metal washes up on a beach. And it looks like it comes from an aircraft. In July 2015, a council worker on Reunion Island, a French territory in the Indian Ocean, stumbles upon an unusual object on a beach. It's called a flaperon. There is one on each wing of a Boeing 777. Part of the mechanism that makes it rise or fall. Boeing quickly confirms that its serial number matches that of the missing plane. It's the first piece of physical evidence that MH370 ended its flight in the ocean.
It is my hope that this confirmation will at least bring certainty to the families and loved ones.
The suffering of the families attracts the attention of amateur wreck hunter Blaine Gibson and sets him off on a remarkable personal quest.
I was very, very touched, very moved, and realized that I needed to go do what I could to solve this. And what I learned, what that niche was that there was no official search for debris that washed ashore.
Blaine consults ocean drift experts who direct him to Mozambique, where he makes an immediate discovery.
It was a triangular, gray-shaped piece of debris that said no step on it. Clearly aircraft. I felt an enormous sense of responsibility because I realized that I had just found the second piece of debris in the greatest aviation mystery in history.
Boeing confirms that the no-step debris is from MH370. Blaine has found it 4,350 miles away from the main search zone. Almost 30 pieces of debris thought to come from MH370 are recovered, all on the western side of the Indian Ocean. Blaine Gibson finds 15 of them. One piece stands out from the rest.
The most significant to me, and also to the investigation, was the case around the TV screen on the back of the seat in front of you. This is the one that brought tears to my eyes. This is perhaps the last thing that somebody saw. This is what anyone who flies on a plane would recognize.
Debris like this from inside the passenger cabin confirms that MH370 hit the water hard.
Some of the items indicates that there was quite a large amount of energy at the time the aircraft entered the water.
Another piece of debris helps resolve a key question. Investigators already believed the plane ran out of fuel, but as it fell towards the ocean, was someone trying to save it with a controlled ditch.
This section of main flap was found in Tanzania, Pemba Island, in 2016, and when imagery was passed to us, we realised it was pretty significant.
The flap extends on an internal support track. Investigators discover that the track has left impact marks inside the flap. That can only happen if it's in a retracted position. Strong evidence that the plane was in its normal cruising state as it fell towards the sea.
It's been the subject of a lot of debate. The hard physical evidence and our analysis showed that it wasn't a controlled ditch, or there wasn't active control from the cockpit extending the flaps at the time that the flaps separated from the aircraft.
The flap supports the theory that the plane ran out of fuel and suggests that no one at that point was trying to ditch or save it. But the debris doesn't only confirm how MH370 crashed. It opens up a new and exciting line of inquiry that could narrow the search area.
I think it's enormously important to find the plane, because while planes crash routinely, they don't just disappear, and I think this terrifies people.
Oceanographer David Griffin believes that the very first piece of debris recovered The flaperon on Reunion Island may be the key.
Be a good spot, I reckon. Wind's probably a bit stronger, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
This is a Boeing 777 flaperon off another aircraft, not MH370.
We'll use this end to sink it again, all right? Yep.
David Griffin is trying to recreate the journey of the flaperon across the ocean in the hope that this will pinpoint the crash site. He compares the flaperon's movement to these buoys, known as ocean drifters. They're used daily all around the world to monitor ocean currents.
We very quickly determined that these replica flaperons moved about 10 centimetres per second faster downwind than an oceanographic drifter.
That may not sound like much, but when he compares it to known data about the currents in the 7th arc on the day of the crash, it helps him estimate the flaperon's travels during the 500 days it was afloat. It's an extraordinary discovery. To narrow the search zone even further, David Griffin investigates another strange feature of the debris.
In addition to knowing where things are found in Africa, the other key thing is where things have not been found, and that's Australia.
Why has no debris been washed ashore in Australia? Some of the ocean currents in the search area flow east towards the country. A plane crashing here should leave evidence on Australian beaches.
So this immediately tells us that all those potential parts of the 7th arc where the flow is strongly towards Australia, they're essentially ruled out.
When David Griffin looks at the historic drifter data from the day MH370 disappeared, he finds 3 places on the 7th arc where the current would have pushed debris away from Australia towards Africa.
Here around 35, you have this area where everything is moving to the west. Again, up at 31, everything's moving to the west.
If the plane crashed in one of these areas, it would explain why debris was not found in Australia. And critically, only one of these locations matches his calculation of the flaperon's journey.
So that led us to propose that 35 south is the most likely area for the crash.
.35 south is an area that was not checked during the initial surface debris search. For investigators, it's an exciting new lead, but it comes too late.
It is with some level of sadness, certainly with a great deal of frustration and disappointment that I stand here and acknowledge that the underwater search area effort has been suspended.
On January 17th, 2017, after almost 3 frustrating years, the search for MH370 is called off.
Obviously, I have strong feelings and am disappointed that we didn't find the aircraft, but that's not for the technical abilities or the giving it full effort and feeling good about the job that we did at the time.
It was record-breaking in terms of the time it took, the area that was covered. There's never been a search as big by an order of magnitude.
But will David Griffin's flaperon experiment persuade authorities to search 35 degrees south? It takes almost a year to answer that question, and new evidence from the skies. And in 2017, he finds more evidence pointing to the same place.
I remember the day when I first saw those images in high resolution, and I thought, oh my God, this really helps.
15 days after MH370 disappeared, a French military satellite captured images of possible man-made debris in the vicinity of 35 South. At that time, the location wasn't considered a high-priority area. But 4 years later, it's a different story.
I thought that this is really exciting. This could be used to restart the search.
A new year brings new hope. In January 2018, salvage company Ocean Infinity sets out on a brand new privately funded mission. The 7th Ark is still the focus, but they expand the width of the previous search zone and move towards the new area identified by David Griffin. Once again, Andy Sherrill is on board. And this time, he has 8 autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs.
One deep tow vessel would do a swing of about 30 days on site. And over those 30 days on site, they'd cover about 3,500 square kilometers. Using 8 AUVs simultaneously, we can cover that in about 3 to 4 days.
It's a high-stakes gamble. If they find nothing, they don't get paid. Ocean Infinity searches the new priority area at 35 South. In 5 months, they cover an area almost equal in size to the original seafloor search. But frustratingly, they find no trace of MH370. The 2 search efforts have covered almost 92,000 square miles of seafloor, 14 times the size of the Air France 447 search zone. In May 2018, the Malaysian government announces that it will not support any new searches.
We cannot keep on searching for this 370 for forever.
Is the wreckage of MH370 waiting to be discovered in the 386,000 square miles of 7th Ark search zone that remains unexplored? Do clues to the mystery lie a few feet outside the circle of light and knowledge already cast by the search teams? Only time, money, and the continued desire for answers separate us from the moment of discovery.
Lost beneath the sea, there's a hidden world full